and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com. Each week we profile a guest who shares intimate details of their mental health journey. They share because they understand that when people don't talk about their depression or other mental health conditions, those of us who struggle with them can feel like we're the only ones, that there's something wrong with us, instead of understanding that we have a common and treatable illness. I'm Terry, the creator and co-host of this podcast.
And I'm Dr. Anita Sanz, a licensed clinical psychologist with more than 25 years in clinical practice. I know from both personal and professional experience how significantly mental health and other disorders can impact not just our lives, but those around us as well. By speaking openly and with the wisdom of lived experience, we help normalize conversations that are often avoided due to shame or stigma. Our episodes are honest and real, and we keep them hopeful because there truly is hope, despite what depression tells you.
This podcast is brought to you by Recovery.com, whose mission is to help each person find the best path to recovery through a comprehensive, helpful network of treatment providers for both mental health and addiction treatment worldwide. This and last week's episodes are a different format than usual, as they have a different focus than usual. Since November is the month during which the United States honors all its military veterans for their service and sacrifices, we want to focus on veterans' mental health, and this week, how we as a society can better support and respect veterans. As you'll soon hear, we found the perfectly qualified guest to understand and discuss both those perspectives, and the perfect person to interview him, as he gives his voice to depression.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Anita Sanz, co-host of the Giving Voice to Depression podcast. And last week, I interviewed Dr. Don Sanz, a combat veteran who's also a psychologist who works with veterans and who also just happens to be my husband. So welcome back, Don.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
If you tuned in last week, you heard Don talk about how he went from being a veteran to a psychologist who works with veterans. And he talked about the unique issues that veterans face. So this week, we're going to focus on how we can support the veterans that we know and love. So thanks again, Don. And I wanted to say almost everyone knows someone who's a veteran, even if they don't actually know that they are a veteran, right?
Well, that's true because a lot of veterans don't come back advertising that they are veterans. They're mainly trying to find ways to fit back into society.
So how can family and significant others be supportive, be understanding of those unique needs that veterans have and help them in the capacity that they know the veteran?
Well, first we'll talk about what we mean by veteran because there's such a different amount of pressure that's been put on veterans from back in my day of Vietnam to now Afghanistan and Iraq and other places around the world that many of us don't even know where our veterans are coming from, but they're facing certainly a lot of traumatic events and a lot of experiences that can bring about some major symptoms of mental health. So now what we look at is what happens when a veteran returns home and a veteran returns to their family, friends, and community. What can we do? Well, I sort of divided it up into like three major categories of behaviors that I think might be helpful. The first and most important is to listen. The veteran family and friends need to listen to the veteran, even though it's very likely that the veteran is not wanting to talk a whole lot about their traumatic experiences. So listen and be available to listen to what is being said. The second thing is the area of observation. What you want to do is observe, not like eyeball your veteran, but observe their behavior and their mood state and how they're doing to get an idea of how they might be functioning. And then, of course, the third thing is what I would call encourage. Encourage the veteran to take advantage of some of the services that are available. Right now, veterans, there's more and more services that are available for veterans. When I go back in my history from Vietnam, we were still trying to learn what post-traumatic stress was. And there was also a kind of a hidden sense of pride that was very small in those days, and the country was not exactly welcoming veterans back. Now there's a greater sense of pride, which I think is very helpful. And I'm so happy to see that happening for veterans of other wars and conflicts. So we'll go back to listen, observe, and encourage. It's very important to be able to know that a veteran may not want to talk now, but to know that you're available, that when that time comes that the veteran would like to talk, that you're available to listen, non-judgmental, none of that, and just listen to what the veteran has to say. I think it's also important that the family members, and I would certainly do this well before your veteran family member returns home, learn something about the resources that are available to help the veteran readjust to life. There are many, many resources that are out there that can help the veteran with their medical needs, with their educational needs, with their financial needs, with their mental health needs, with all of these types of needs that are going to be there. That's going to be very important that you already have that available and have a way that you could encourage your veteran to take advantage of them.
So I really like what you're saying about listening non-judgmentally and signaling the availability to be there when the person is ready. I think that's something that we've talked about on the podcast for people who are dealing with other types of mental health issues and depression. So what could people like neighbors and coworkers and people who are just in the bigger community, what can they do to signal that kind of sort of non-judgmental support for veterans?
Well, I think I'm seeing a lot of it happening now with returning veterans where you can be welcoming. Now, what all is involved in welcoming? When you welcome the veteran that came home, you've been away, you've done a hard job, you've had a difficult time, and I want to welcome you. And we hear so much now people thanking someone for their service. And it may seem like just a rote sort of comment, but it really means a lot to veterans. Thank you very much for putting your life on the line. That is a very, very important thing. And I appreciate what you did for me. To be able to communicate that to the veteran, and you know what? To let them know that I'm here for you. If you need something, I'm there for you. That's a very important quality for any neighbors or family people to have.
That's really, really good information. And I know here in Florida, one of the resources that, we access and that we ask people to access has to do with is it a veterans service office, or can you speak to that?
There are many resources, and most states have veteran services offices that are not run by the VA, but are run by the state and by state government. And there are certain provisions so they can help veterans to access the kinds of information that they need. For example, who knows what their disability claim might be if there is a disability claim? Who knows what sort of financial help they can get? Where can you get medical help? Where can you get involved with certain kinds of programs that could help you make decisions about what are the next career goals for you and what are you going to do with your life? So these services are available, but there are various types of service offices that are available in every state. And it's very important, I think, for family members. I would strongly encourage to know what they are, have them listed down, and know that the veteran could access those services when they're ready to.
And I think you've made an interesting observation, at least to me before, that when veterans are in active service, a lot of those resources are automatically sort of either given or they're informed about them. But then can you talk about, again, sort of in that transition back into, the civilian world, what that's like to not know some of this information?
Well, remembering that when veterans return, often it's a very, very confusing time, and information is thrown at veterans from many different directions, and be able to know what those things are. It takes quite a bit of time before you can sort of settle down and say, okay, now where are my next steps? What are the next things I need to do? And the different kinds of information that may have been very well given may not have been received by the veteran. Consequently, I think it's important that you know what those things are, and then you can go over them with the veteran and encourage them to take advantage of them.
Is there anything else that you would recommend that people who care about veterans know so that they can be more helpful?
Well, certainly to know that the veteran does want to reintegrate with you, with the family, and with friends, and to be part of that. But that is going to take some time. So I would say the fourth thing that you might want to really do a lot of is patience. A lot of patience with your veteran to take advantage of some of the services and to slowly reintegrate back into the flow of life back in the world.
Thank you so much, Don. I really, really appreciate your being willing to share, your personal history, your information, all of the knowledge that you have about working with veterans. And I also want to thank you again for your service, not just as a veteran, but also as a psychologist who I know truly cares about veterans and their families. And I also want to say welcome home.
Thank you very much.
We truly hope that our podcast brings a little more understanding, helps you better articulate and reflect on your own experience with depression, or better understand how to support someone else who is struggling.
If this episode has been of comfort or value to you, know that there are hundreds of others like it in our archive, which you can easily find at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com. And remember, if you're struggling, speak up, even if it's hard. If someone else is struggling, take the time to listen.